Hi, everybody. Welcome to our series of COVID coffee breaks organized by INSOL Europe, so to keep us up to date with the latest developments in all countries across Europe. My name is Irina. I am a licensed insolvency practitioner in both Cyprus and Romania. I represent CITR in Cyprus. Together with me is my good friend George Nikopoulos Exintaris, the country coordinator.
Hello to everybody.
Representing End Solution. Kalimera, George. It's such a pleasure to see you even in these conditions. How is the situation in Greece? The lockdown, disease there, people working from home or back to the office?
Well, we have returned to the office with some limitations regarding how many people can be around per square meter. It's something that we're trying to cope again, being out, working, seeing how things are going, see what our market will do. Restaurants are again open. Hotels are supposed to open for new tourists after the 15th of June. So we are trying to get back to normal here. Of course, people are afraid, everybody is hesitant, but you know, life has to go on with precaution, with care, but still.
Yes.
The weather is sunny though.
Yes, yes, that's the good part, right, of these days. Yeah, well, in Cyprus, the sanitary crisis was very well kept under control and generally low rates of COVID, low number of cases. So now the lockdown was removed and things are slowly going back to normal. Of course, with, like you said, a lot of safety measures in place and a lot of cautions, but we are going back to normal. Maybe not the normal that we used to have, but still going back to this.
A new kind of normal, maybe.
A new kind of, yes. But were there any temporary pre-insolvency or insolvency reforms regulated in Greece in this period?
Well, our law was supposed to change on the 30th of April, of course, due to the whole COVID crisis. This has been postponed. And I suppose that maybe the whole wave of disruption in any economy, not only the Greek one, will be taken into consideration by our legislators. So we are now expecting again to see a new law aligned with the European Directive of 2019. Things will happen, hopefully soon.
Yes, somehow the same situation in Cyprus. There were no pre-insolvency or insolvency reforms to accommodate this current situation. Since the insolvency is always a last resort in Cyprus for both creditors and debtors in distress, the insolvency framework was not a major concern for authorities and legislators during this period. But there were a lot of state aid packages or measures taken, and some specific measures, like, for example, the Bank Association decided to suspend foreclosure proceedings. And this was initially until June, and then they decided to extend the period until end of August. But it is important to mention that this was it is binding for banks only, and not for any other creditors like servicers that are running portfolios bought from banks by funds, for example. Also, suspension of loan installments, including interest, is in place now until end of the year for clients, and this is again something important to know, clients that at the end of February were not registering delays or were not behind with their payments in each loan agreement. So only punctual measures and not changes in the insolvency regime in either Greece or Cyprus until now. How about the court?
Here, for example, there were some similar measures. Postponement of installments was given in terms of capital. The state agreed to subsidize a small part of the interest, so the interests from March to June. Foreclosures have been postponed. The good thing is that these things here were in force with a presidential decree So essentially legislation, not a semi-voluntary decision. Of course, there are a lot of gaps. For example, some money was given to people that didn't start working to support them, but after a certain extent, this crisis has become something more than a 15-day issue, and now everybody's waiting to see how this will be faced as a bigger problem and how things will go on.
Yes. How about the courts? Were they functioning in this period?
No, the courts were closed for almost the last 3 months. They have reopened for cases now. Still, there is a lot of fear that there might be some contamination of COVID, even though Greece is a country that had coped greatly with the whole situation. I mean, we have a very low rate of deaths, a very low rate of people actually being sick and dragged to hospitals, and I believe that that's the result of an effort from everybody, from people in charge, from people at home, you know.
Yes, people just acknowledge the risks and
took measures to protect their loved ones.
Yes. So in this respect, yes, in Cyprus, the same situation. Well, about the courts, yes, in Cyprus, all cases in all courts were suspended from 16th of March until beginning of May, with some exceptions, urgent cases. After that, the activity was resumed. The courts reopened, but now hearings are set only to schedule other hearings. So the activity is not on a normal pace.
We had something very interesting in Greece in courts, and I want to ask if it's the same for you there. Here, for example, court procedures in Greece are not completely digital yet, as it might be in other countries. So actually, for the first time, you could send an email to the court, and the judge in charge, so the one that should be there for emergency cases, would answer to you if your case, is to be considered or not as an urgent one. So we are moving faster towards digitalization of procedures due to this whole thing.
I think here we are still a bit far of that. So difficult.
Still, everything is done with pen and paper, but you know.
Yes. In the process, I mean, I think in these days, everyone realizes that it is important to move towards digitalization and in online, and to have everything adapted to that, which is a good thing. Still a lot of work in that respect, but at least we realize that, for example, we can change meetings with phone calls or emails or anything that will take less time and less personal contact, to say so. But okay, still a lot of work in that respect.
Yeah, I guess it is.
What do you think? I mean, now the sanitary crisis seems to be on a good track in all countries. We seem like keeping things under control. But how about the economy and insolvency? Have you seen more cases, more filings for insolvency? Do you expect a wave of cases from now on, after all the state aid packages will come to an end and everyone will get back on their own, to say so? How do you see the situation?
Well, look, I believe that what we do in insolvency, because it's not only bankruptcy, it's also reorganization of a company, it's something that becomes quintessential in such a crisis. Since there is such a big systemic disruption, companies and debtors in general, but mostly companies, because these are the items we work with, will need technical support to restructure their debts, to maybe even restructure their way of operation. Companies have to align with new hygienic standards, and all the government measures that will be taken either directly from the Greek government or in collaboration with the European Commission will have to be implemented into such a restructuring strategy. For instance, you cannot just put money in a company without stabilizing its operation. This would also lead the company to a collapse, and you would lose the funds that you would allocate into such a situation. So for me, yes, there is a huge wave of business coming towards us. It's going to be a challenge. Okay, it's good to have more business, obviously, but still,
yeah, I think it
a
is
difficult
important
situation.
to say that there is a common factor for Greece and Cyprus. I mean, both Greece and Cyprus were still dealing with the effect of the previous crisis and struggling to reduce the NPLs.
That's true.
I mean, Cyprus was, in terms of volume of NPLs, only second after Greece in Europe, and struggling to reduce the NPLs in the first stage when banks were trying to remove the NPLs from their balance sheet, and then continuing in the economy to try to reduce organically the NPLs. And now this new crisis just came on top of things, so just making the situation even more difficult somehow. Then one of the sectors that is most affected by the crisis worldwide is the travel and the tourism. And in Cyprus, like in Greece, the contribution of travel and tourism in the GDP takes a big share, maybe above
20%.
Yes. So we cannot ignore the significant impact that this sanitary crisis will have on the economy. Now, what I know about Greece, somehow the situation may be similar with Cyprus, that the insolvency framework is not very effective. So it's like a last resort, like I said, for both creditors and debtors in distress, unfortunately, until this point. But what I've seen, for example, in Cyprus, it's a change of behavior for creditors. They're more open to solutions brought by debtors, trying to find ways to come to an agreement out of court, out of any proceedings, more willing to accept big haircuts, huge compromises, just to try to move things because they realize that everything is a bit stuck. Plus, the debtors have all these postponements. But all the measures I know, like I said, are not referring to companies in distress that were already in distress. I mean, even the moratoria, the postponement of loans, was referring to performing borrowers, those that were not having delays in payment at the end of February when the crisis the new crisis sort of started. So it is an important moment for both Cyprus and Greece to see how things will move from now on. But also an important term in this respect is the profession itself. I mean, okay, it's the insolvency framework, but the profession of insolvency practitioner, it is new in Cyprus, and I know it is under construction in Greece, right? I mean, they are trying to build the statutes now.
Yeah, it's what you said. Maybe I wouldn't say that we have a bad framework as it is. The problem is that you can build the perfect framework, but still stakeholders need to participate. Here, what we have is a matter of distrust from debtors to what systemic creditors offer. And it's still a moving market. The banks have tried in the last years to make some offers, let's say, to the market for settlements or even some haircut or such. But the crude reality is that there are banking institutions in Greece that do not have a certain position either than we sell loans. And I don't mean the selling loans that they should do, which is selling loan products to clients, so creating new debtors, but I mean selling loan titles. So essentially, we have huge companies that sell loan titles. We have huge hedge funds that buy loan titles. And in the moment, the players are not yet there into deciding how to go to the next day. We have also a demographic problem. For example, I don't know how things are in Cyprus. You are also a small country like we are. You're actually one of the smallest countries in the European Union in terms of population. So imagine now that a big part of everybody who touched bank money in Greece for the last 10 years is unbankable. Even if the new directive takes force and they get absolved in terms of penal or whatever, so nobody's asking money from them, they will still don't have a credit record. So we're not expecting our population to grow rapidly with new kids that will want to move the economy, the private sector. So this will lead into a stagnation. So there are no magic solutions. We all have to go back, find the people that are still there and still alive and still trying to move things, even though they lost money or their business is not doing well, and assist them as much as possible, because these are the people that are holding our economies. Europe is an SME market. It's not a big corporation market. It's the market of the bakery. It's the market of the small enterprise.
Yes, but I really think that they need help. And I think it is important to address problems in a specialized way. I mean, for example, in Cyprus, there is a good news in this period. It's not due to the pandemic. It was something in progress, but fortunately, it wasn't suspended.
Really, what?
Stopped during the crisis, is that the parliament has passed a bill which regulates the setup of the Department of Insolvency this very week. So this department, specialized for insolvency, will take over the affairs of the insolvency framework and the work of the insolvency advisors. And I'm very happy about this, because I think that the next step should be and will be the change of the insolvency framework, which is very urgent in order to adapt existing legislation to what is going on, the reality of our economy today. The insolvency tools, specialized courts, and insolvency advisors, I really think they play a key role in the way a country deals with and survives an economic crisis. So they can really be of help to limit damages, and should be a link in between the creditors and debtors in distress. So it's really a good news from Cyprus.
It's important, and it's great to hear. And we're in a market that illusions should end. We don't have time for illusions anymore. You cannot have the illusion that the money you did not collect for 10 years are there for you. You cannot have the illusion that even though you took some money of somebody else, everybody's going to just say, don't worry, you will never pay.
If you are granted with a loan, you have to pay back. But there are solutions, and it's important to find the right solution, a win-win solution in between a bank and a company or a client in default.
Well, that's what we all do, right? I mean, that's our role here.
Yes. How about the directive? I mean, this was an important subject for our conference in INSOL Europe, which unfortunately was postponed. How is is the directive implemented? I suppose not.
Well, the new legislation that we are expecting should take into consideration the directive. I've seen some drafts. For example, the personal bankruptcy will happen in the second chance. So after 3 years, if you lose everything and you have not any negligence on your hand, then you will be able supposedly to be free of your debts and burdens and continue with your life. Also, the role of the insolvency practitioner is expected to be updated. But on the other hand, I believe that maybe the directive of 2019 has become outdated in terms of having a bigger problem to cope with. Yes. Maybe it should be updated.
Yes, there are a lot of principles there that could be of help even in this moment. I mean,
no, the directive is great. I mean, yes, there is a lot of material, but it needs to go to the next step. That's my opinion, at least.
Maybe we need an update. Even so, there were a lot of mechanisms that do not exist in Cyprus at this moment. And hopefully, with the change of the legislation and the reform we are expecting to have, we'll address these subjects as well. I think we are coming to an end. Dear George, it was a great pleasure talking to you, as always. Thank you for being with us, with me, and for everyone that will watch.
And everybody that will have the courage to watch our video, right?
Yes, and any recommendations and thoughts for both Greece and Cyprus, I think would be very much appreciated. I mean, we are all in this together, and I think that sharing information is very important in this moment, and good solutions should spread across all countries faster than the virus did, right?
Yeah, definitely. And even as INSOL Europe, we should try to do things. We should try more. One last thought, one last hope is that maybe this big action taken by the European Commission, that is, if I'm not mistaken, more than 700 billion euros allocated to alleviate the COVID-19 problems, maybe we could, as an organization, try to provide with know-how on how these funds could be allocated into helping the real economy, the private sector, the SMEs, the whole situation. But first and foremost, let's all have our health and see how we cope, right?
To end in a very positive note. Thank you so much.